We are live.
On the internet?
Gentlemen, how's it going?
I'm
We are
sad.
excited. Let's go.
We finished.
We're
This
done.
was an interesting read, for sure. So, I figured I would kick this thing off by giving formal introductions like we have been doing. And so, I will kick off the Hat Creek Gang we have dubbed ourselves. We'll kick it off with Rowdy, whose spirit character is Gus, because he talks nonstop and likes the finer things in life, like his broken binding book editions, always looking for a poke, and hopefully his family's not watching this. Trav, his spirit character is P.I. He almost drowns in the freezing water and then wonders hallucinating on dreams with nothing but his birthday suit on. Oh, the horror, which is just like the books Travs enjoys. And then we have Scott, whose spirit character is Lorena, a girl who passes from feller to feller. The abuse explains Scott's channel's humor. I mean, after all the trauma, your humor is all you have left. And then myself, my character is Jake. I love women, gambling. I'm truly selfish, and all I care about is making 10 to 15 videos a week. So here we are, the Hat Creek Gang.
That was fantastic.
My prices just went up. It's $3. $3 a poke now.
Oh,
you wanna play cards for it?
Not if you're cutting the deck. No. I fell for that once.
What's up, Josh?
What's up, Josh? Oh man.
So that is our crew. I can tell you before I kind of kick off the explanation of this part of the book, this has been a process. I think you can all agree, or maybe you won't, but getting through this over the course of the last 8 weeks now has been something. I think we've if Rowdy could share, we went from I don't know if I like this book to I really like this book to I didn't want this book to end. Trav's been on board, through the whole thing. Scott kind of knew what was going to happen, but didn't really know. And here I am, kind of just. I was kind of like Rowdy at the beginning. I'm like, I don't know what my bearings are, and then it just, I was ahead. Then I was behind all you guys. So there's been a lot that's been going on. So. So I figured we'd kick it off. Say hello to some folks. Hello, Pat.
Hey, Pat.
And so I want to give kind of a summary. And obviously we've been talking spoilers, so I'm going to get into a little bit of the weeds here, but a lot happens. And I missed the live stream from Scott's, the last one. And there was a lot that happened in that section as well. But obviously this is the conclusion. And so I'm going to give you kind of some details of what transpired in this section. We picked up on part 3 with this chapter 75. And so we finally meet Clara, Gus's love of his life, the one who got away in Ogallala. And we meet, her and her daughters and Cholo and Elmira, and Luke and Zwei are headed towards them, and they meet them, and Elmira's sick. She's basically at the point of giving birth, which she does. She's still looking for D-Boot, and lo and behold, they find D-Boot in the town. He's going to be hung. She has, Zwei's holding Elmira up. She's basically bleeding out, hemorrhaging. July heads, out, trying to head out from Dodge City, has horse problems. He goes back because then he gets snake bit. He runs into Cholo. Lo and behold, they meet Clara, and then Clara recognizes, hey, that guy looks a lot like Martin the baby. Gus and Call, they come back to the cattle drive after the whole thing with Will Barger and Jake, and Lorena offers Gus a poke. The crew heads on to Ogallala. Many are very in retrospect about everything going on with Jake. You know, Gus and Call are still having the retrospective, you know, looks back on their life about Maggie, about Clara, and then they've come to the conclusion they need to let the boys kind of blow off steam. Elmira is being cared for by the doctor in Ogallala. She wants Zwei basically to kill her if she finds out, you know, D-Boot dies and whatnot. In walks July after he gets, you know, back on his feet. He tells her about Joe dying on the trail. She wants nothing to do with them. Her and Zwei head out, even though she's not well. And, you know, what ends up happening, you know, with Elmira and Zwei and the Apaches, that takes place. Then July's back at the ranch with Clara and Cholo. Clara, you know, wants him to stay and help around the ranch because they need the help. She also is kind of undetermined about what she wants with Martin. Obviously, we're talking about Bob and how he always wanted a boy, and now you got July here. Yeah, and you kind of, I don't know about you, and maybe I'll stop here for a second and ask a question. Did you see the foreshadow of July and Clara?
No, I did not.
Okay. Okay.
I watched the miniseries, so.
No, so you have a difference of opinion?
Yeah.
Okay. So then, this is probably the section that I really enjoyed and hated the most. So in about the chapter 80s, the wagon train heads into Ogallala. The younglings are eager to meet ladies. Dietz is missing home. Gus heads into town. He's looking for gambling whiskey. He buys clothes for Lori. The boys meet up with Dixon, the guy from the army who is trying to take Dish's horse. So I really liked this part because I thought Newt finally kind of stood his ground. Obviously, this Dixon guy was a big jackwagon, and he's trying to take the horse. Newt stands his ground, hangs on to the bridle. Call comes over and beats the living crap out of this guy, which I thought was a great scene. I don't know about you guys.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed that. I thought that was really kind of, it felt good.
It was better in the book than it was in the miniseries.
Yeah.
I thought.
That's good to know. Because to the people viewing, I haven't watched the miniseries. These guys have. And so then we get the boys. And I really like this one. Because I thought we went from, okay, we had this huge confrontation. Call beats the crap out of this Dixon guy. And then the boys are here. So you got Newt, Jimmy, Ben, and Pete. They're heading to the brothel. Gus gives them money. But Lippy gives them advice, which I thought was hilarious. This is where they meet Mary, and I think it was Buff. You had one skinny and one larger lady. But the advice that he gives him, I think, is one of my favorite scenes. And it was all around. He's like, when it comes to horn, you need to get drunk first. You need to beer up a little bit because the girls are not going to be. He says the girls are going to be rank. And then he talks about if you don't go to the bathroom, it might come off in your hand, or it might drip worse than Lippy's stomach. And I thought I literally spit out my coffee when I read that one morning.
I think one of the guys, one of the cowhands, had given advice because the boys didn't know physically what to do, and he just said, "Do what the bull does, except reverse it on the other side." And they still didn't really understand the whole mechanics of it.
Yeah.
I had marked a couple LOLs down, and that was one of them.
Yep. Me too. Yep. And so, hello, Linda. Nice to see you. And then, so going back to kind of the overarching high points here. So then the boys have their encounter with Mary, and I'm pretty sure it was Buff, I think the lady's name was. And so then Gus, Newt, and Lorena head to Claire's ranch. So we get this big section because Gus is going to finally see Claire after all these years, which I think was like 16 years, if I remember correctly, but don't quote me on that. Gus's hope is that Claire is a widow. Obviously, Bob is still in the picture, but he's not self-sufficient. It's pretty devastating, kind of situation. And Claire invites Lorena to stay as the guys head on to Montana. And so when Gus returns to the wagon group, Dish is mad because obviously Lorena's not in the picture anymore. And then they all start having strange dreams, which I think was around the lack of water. Am I correct? But it's a foreshadow because what's really going to happen, which has really upset me in this coming section, is what happens to my favorite character, Dietz.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, this one ripped my heart out. So Call, Gus, and Dietz, they head out. There's some Indians that are stealing the horses. Well, lo and behold, they're hungry. It's a bunch of families. It's not people, doing it to make money or anything. They come on him. Dietz has that scene, and this just rips my heart out. I don't know how Trav felt about this, but he's trying to give, he meets the kid. I think he's holding a boy, and then he's wanting to like, hey, it's fine or whatever, or he's holding one of the pieces of the animal with the horse, and he's like, it's fine. And they're actually going to give, take a couple of the horses. There was one horse that Call wanted, and he has the encounter, and he gets lanced, basically. Yeah, I hated the book at this point. I mean, that ripped my heart out. And no pun intended, and no disrespect to Dietz, but yeah, that was bad. Okay, so moving on. So that happens. Gus is then he's starting to let Newt know that, hey, Call's your paw. They also have the ornery Texas bull that they have the encounter with the grizzly happens. Bob ends up dying. Clara's girls are interested in her past. July obviously is in love with Clara, and Lorena's basically distant. So then the crew keeps moving forward. They make it to Montana. Gus again mentions Call being Newt's father to Newt. He also, I think, again addresses it with Call. The crew's not happy about crossing the Yellowstone. Call sends Gus and P.I. on a scouting mission. And that's when Gus comes up over a hill. They come upon a war party. The next thing you know, they're running tail, and Gus is being shot with arrows. So they hunker down. Gus sends P.I. on to meet up with Call. He's pretty much at this point hallucinating. And so P.I. has his trek where he's dreaming about Dietz kind of bringing him along. He goes into the river. He's got the gun. He loses everything's wet. He loses his clothes. It's a pretty brutal scene. It reminded me a lot of the Revenant book, but P.I. makes it back towards where they're bringing the wagon train on. He tells him what's going on as best as he could. Call then grabs the hell bitch. He grabs his gear. He heads out. Lo and behold, during that time, Gus hits up with Hugh Auld, an older gentleman, and they take him 40 miles. They basically have to tie him in the horse to Miles City. His leg's looking bad. That's when in the town, Gus meets with Dr. Mobley, and he's wanting to take his other leg. It's infected. There's the piano player. Gus keeps, throwing coins at her because he wants to hear the music. Gus does not want anyone to take his leg. And I don't know about you all, but his obstinance in this section was very indicative of his character overall, the whole book. Do you guys have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think.
Go ahead.
I think if he couldn't be whole, then he didn't want to be. He didn't want to be less of a man. And he's the one who, throughout the book, kind of recognized that he's getting older. He might not be able to shoot as quick or as good or other things, but he recognized his experience. But there's one thing that I think that stood out was that he, probably more so than most of the characters, he recognized that he was getting older, and if he couldn't be whole or close to whole, he didn't want to be.
Right.
Yeah, because it sounded like, was it not in the book, something about where he said that if you took his other leg, it would take his dignity or something?
Yeah.
And it's like, if you're going to do that, then there's no point in me being alive anyways. So you might as well just let me die.
Yeah.
Basically. Because he
Trav,
wasn't going to do that.
I'm interested in your thoughts here.
On the Gus thing.
Yes.
Well, I mean, I agree with what you all say.
Yeah.
About it. That's, you all aren't saying anything that I wouldn't say. So at this point. So.
Okay. Yeah. The one thing I picked up too was, I think Gus was obviously very obstinate. Like you said, he didn't want his dignity. The other thing was too, I think because of how he saw Clara caring for Bob, he didn't want to burden both Clara or Lorena with being kind of handicapped, basically. And so that was a big thing, I think, plus his character. So, but moving back to this, okay, so that's going on. Call obviously makes his way to the town. He meets up with Dr. Mobley. You know, Gus, you know, he's trying to talk some sense into Gus. Gus doesn't want to hear it. Basically, Gus gives Call his kind of last will and testament, asks him, you know, some crazy things. Obviously, he wants to leave his half of the whole share to Lorena. He wants to be buried in the Guadalupe area where they picnicked, him and Clara, back in Lonesome Dove. And so Gus has Dr. Mobley put him on ice, and so that way they can continue on and make the way to Montana and establish a ranch. And then that's when Hugh all joins up with Call, and they grab supplies, and they meet up with the crew, and they keep moving forward. Now, at this point, Call makes his way up to the wagon crew. Hugh has to play catch up, you know, driving the thing. And then when Hugh comes to the group, he becomes kind of like the new Gus. He's the talker. They continue to push on. They make it past, I think it was the Milk River, even though there was a lot of hesitancy around the group about making it through Yellowstone. That's when, at one point, I think in the book, the wagon or the cattle crew was questioning whether or not Call was ever going to stop. And then finally Call stops and he wants to start building, which then creates its own confrontation because, especially with Dish, because Dish is like, hey, I'm not a contractor. You know, that wasn't what I had. And he starts to threaten to leave. And at first he doesn't, but later he does. And so what ends up happening is, as July is out there proposing to Clara, who kind of treats him similar to Elmira did at first, ignoring him, Martin gets sick, Dish shows up, July gets very jealous. And then the news of Gus hits Clara and Lorena hard, especially Lorena. And so the one thing I also picked up on, and I wanted to know your guys' thoughts here as well, is Call has a big issue with Gus leaving half of his money to Lorena. And it kind of foreshadows, at least to me, in my opinion, it foreshadows what's going to happen, which was a big plot point I think Trav wanted with Call in Newt. If he's ever going to give him his name, if he's going to recognize him as being his dad. And so I thought his feelings towards Lorena and her getting the share was a nice foreshadow of how he was going to handle that situation. But I didn't know at that point. I don't know what your guys' thoughts are.
I'll go.
Go.
Well, I wanted to know, okay, so we have Gus and Call. Now, did Gus get his half? I mean, what about P? What about Dietz? It's a Hack Creek gang. So, I mean, I'm just like, kind of just curious, like, wouldn't they each get a quarter and his quarter, and it wouldn't be so much? Or what am I?
Like in the book and the miniseries, they both said that he gets half. Like it's split between them two. Yeah. I thought it was split between them four, but it sounds like it's just them two.
Yeah. So I mean, that was just I just wanted to get clarification on that in case I missed something. I'm like, okay, well she gets half of this whole operation here. You know, that's quite a bit.
Right. Yep. It was inferred that, like, I thought it was inferred that because the original four were Call, Gus, Dietz, and PI, weren't they? Or Dish?
No, I think it was PI. I think that's like the four main ones before everyone comes on.
Gus and Call.
It was Call, Gus, PI, and Dish. What or no, Dietz, weren't they the originals?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's all taking place. And so then Call has to make the trek back to the Guadalupe to take Gus and bury him. And so before he goes, dun dun dun, we get the point, like, okay, he's finally going to tell this young kid who he has been noticing is stepping up, all while he's in his tent and not staying in the lodge with all the guys, that he's finally going to recognize him as his son. And what does he do? He gives him his gun, he gives him his horse, he gives him his watch, and he leaves. I thought that was like seriously. I get that, like, he's a worker, he's a hard case, he's done a lot of things, but like he couldn't have any compassion to do that. Trav, I know this was a big thing for you. So what's your thoughts?
Well, I'm not let down by it, actually, because with everything else not really wrapping up, I didn't really expect that to do so either. I kind of thought it would end on that because Call at this point was just too much of a hard case. I thought there's no hope for this guy. Just let it be. Just let it be.
Yeah. Okay.
In the miniseries, Rowdy, you just watched it, and that I thought that was a pretty great scene where Newt is he's just beaming, he's getting this stuff, and he's just waiting for just come on and say it, and he never says it.
In the miniseries, I think he actually almost, in the book, he doesn't actually do it really, but it seems like in the miniseries, if I remember, he almost actually says, because, he's like, my dad or my father gave me this pocket watch and I'm giving it to you, which is like hey, I'm your father. But he's like, and I think he said, then he holds back and then just turns away in the miniseries. I think that's right.
Yeah.
Something like
Newt is he's just beaming. He's like, this is it. Yeah. This is everything. And then afterwards it's, I'm alone. I don't have family.
Yeah. So then Call is headed back to the town. He has to pick up Gus's body that's been on ice. The leg's missing. Which I kind of laughed out loud after all of this kind of heartache. We're finally at the main conclusion here. And so that happens. He's heading back, which is quite the trek. So on his way back to Lonesome Dove, to the Guadalupe, Call runs into Clara, who gets very angry with him and blames him. Lorena stands vigil at the wagon overnight. There's a letter that Gus wrote, both of them. Clara tries to read it or asks Lorena if she wants to read it to her. She doesn't. Then Call heads back. He's heading back to the Lonesome Dove. And then he, lo and behold, runs into this Charles Goodnight character. And he mentions finally, because I thought this was going to be one of those untouched plot points, but Blue Duck is captured and he's going to be hung in Santa Rosa. And so then he, Call goes and meets Blue Duck. Blue Duck, is his normal self and talks his like big game, even though he's caught. And then he takes a swan dive out of a window. And then we make our way back to the Guadalupe where Call buries Gus, uses the Hat Creek sign. He heads into Lonesome Dove, and who's there at the old ranch? Well, we got Bull, and he's ringing the dang bell. And the place is full of rat crap and everything. I thought that was kind of funny. So he heads to the saloon, and the saloon's burned to the ground because the piano player, which I think was Juan's, he burned to the ground because Lorena left. And I've got to be honest, the ending, it killed me. Like, it was like, that's how this is going to end. Like, he missed Lorena, he missed, and he calls her a whore. He missed a whore. And that was the end of the book. So that's what transpired in this section. So I have a list of questions for you all because we need to have some discussion about this. So, first and foremost, is there any scene that you particularly like the most? I know I mentioned the thing about the boys wanting to go in and blow some steam, meet some girls, don't know what they're doing. That was one of my favorite scenes. What about you all?
Go ahead, Travis.
Favorite scene?
My favorite scene?
Yes.
Ironically, the ending, because it was symbolic to me. It was symbolic. It felt like this full circle deal. It's like Call returns to Lonesome Dove, which is now sort of in desolation because of the dry bean burning down, and there's no one left except Bolivar, and even Wands is gone. He burned himself. So it's like Call returns on his own, and it's kind of like symbolic that he's on his own. The town is just it. I guess what I'm trying to say is Call being alone and kind of destitute himself. He comes back and faces this town that's now kind of, gone down a little bit, that was symbolic to me. And that was my favorite part. That's what I got out of it, because it felt like this full circle deal. It felt like the only thing in the whole freaking book that truly got resolved, except for Call successfully burying Gus where he wanted to be laid to rest.
Okay.
That's just what I got out of it.
Okay. Rowdy?
I think I've actually got two.
Okay.
One of them is the one where Call beats up the one sheriff or whatever army guy.
Dixon, yeah.
And Dixon, and absolutely destroys him.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was really cool. And then the second one, I think, is probably, I really liked the banner between Gus and Clara whenever they meet up, and they just have this, it's almost like they hadn't seen each other in, was it 16 years or something like that?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like they never even missed a day. They go right back into it. First thing, she runs out to him and gives him a kiss on the lips, and her kids are like, "Whoa, Mom, what are you doing?"
Yeah.
And they just go right back to where it was, where he's still trying to marry her, and she's like, "Nope, not gonna happen." Those two were probably two of my favorites.
Scott, not a buffalo hunter?
Not a buffalo hunter. There's only like 20 buffalo left at this time period, right? There's not much on the range. Most of it's underground. But I like Rowdy, I got two. The first one, I think, was when Newt got to join them at the beginning of the book when they crossed over into Mexico to steal the horses. Yeah. It was kind of a coming of age moment for him. I think they gave him a pistol, and he had a really great scene for, I don't know, like 8 or 10 pages where it's just him and he's surrounded by horses, and then they run into some other bandits, and guns are going off, and he doesn't know if he's going to make it home, and there's just all this excitement. And I thought that was done really well. And I would say Call's journey at the end, he got shot. I don't know if you remember, like when he was in the wagon, he got shot. Food, he doesn't have much food. He's basically a skeleton, and life is just really rough for him during the whole journey. And it's a long journey for him. I think the mule dies too. That was pulling.
One of them. He has to leave him. Yeah, and the whole wagon falling apart, wasn't it?
Right. The wagon falls apart, and I think the coffin, breaks up, and that is kind of I enjoy like a good epic one man against nature kind of journey thing. So that was a really good standout point for me.
Yeah, I agree. I liked the part with the boys. I like the humor of it. I liked the part with Deeds as much as it made me upset, because I think, what was it, Trav's stream where we asked the question, okay, how there's going to have to something happen with this. At that point, we were, I don't know, I don't think we made it halfway, or we were the first quarter and we were unsure, but we knew something was going to have to happen when they were heading out to go to Montana. And we questioned, okay, how many people are going to die? And we all kind of were like, hey, there's going to be at least, so many, and we all had our guesses, but we know people are going to die. And I knew some of your favorite characters, or characters we like, were going to die. And so Dietz, his death mattered to me because he was one of my favorite characters, but I liked the part of it because it gave gravity to the story. I mean, if everyone just makes it, I mean, then it's just going to be a bunch of guys, talking about sporting girls and gambling and whiskey and all that. You had to have some of that. And we knew there was going to be Indians, and it's kind of like Scott said, man versus nature. But the death of Dietz was a big one for me. So, hey, Tim. So next question here as we go around the horn here. Is there any plot lines that you thought were open or weren't cared for to the point where you feel like it mattered or it made you upset about anything? Was there anything that you thought wasn't fleshed out in the way you wanted it to be, I guess is my question.
I'll go. I wanted to see Blue Duck actually get his own by one of the crew.
Mm-hmm.
That would have been really nice to see. Maybe they stumble upon him or calls on his way back and he takes a little detour, helps hunt him down, something like that. Just a little bit more satisfaction rather than letting Blue Duck off the hook with ending it himself.
I don't think, it's my personal opinion, as crazy as Blue Duck is, I don't think there's any way that they would have actually took him alive. I think he would have either killed himself, killed them, where they had to kill him. I don't think there's no way that he would have let them take him.
Yeah.
Personally. I mean, he's absolutely nuts.
Yeah.
And he just gets captured and it's like,
well, they only captured him because he got shot 3 times. Lucky shots, they said. Yeah. So I guess it was just pure luck. Yeah.
Yeah. I thought that was weird, in my opinion.
I didn't know if that was going to even be at that point. That was when I was reading towards, we're getting towards the end, things are really starting to come to finalization. I thought, are they really going to not tie up Blue Duck, that plot line?
Because that's where I was curious on if they were going to put him in the second book. Like if that was just going to be open-ended and then he shows up in Streets of Laredo. But obviously not.
Yeah. Trav, anyone for any specific one for you?
Yeah. This is bizarre.
Okay.
Bizarre. Because I wrote these down after you sent them an email and I had to think through them. Okay, you talked about, I don't know if I can get through this without absolutely cracking up. You talked about foreshadowing earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Something I felt was very foreshadowed and really honked me off because it never happened was Jasper Fant's eventual drowning. This dude, I mean, he was such a whiny little puddin' that he was just, I'm going to drown. And it never happened. And I was just, are you kidding me right now? Are you like no other story? Yeah. I mean, it fits because hardly any other storyline in here got fully resolved. So it fits, but just, I was waiting for that because he wasn't one of my favorite characters. I wanted to see him drown in a river because he was so scared of it. To the point. Now, it wasn't very prevalent, but it was enough for me to the point where I thought, okay, something's going to happen. He's going to get up there and his butt's going to be, they're going to dunk this chump somewhere up in one of these rivers. And it never happened. So I was like, well, whatever,
Well, it's bad when even in the book, the guys are like, shut up. It's like, we got it. You're scared of the water. We understand.
Yeah, I was too. I was sitting here thinking, man, can McMurtry just drown this chump already? Just get him out of here,
Yeah.
Wow.
So next question I got for you guys. So characters you wanted more or less of. Anyone stand out for you? Who wants to go? Okay.
Roscoe.
Yeah.
I was devastated.
Yeah.
I wanted more of Roscoe and by extension, Joe and Janie. I wanted him to go back to Louisa and have a life with her. Maybe adopt the 2 kids.
Yes.
I mean, that's what I wanted. And so that was what devastated me.
Yeah.
Okay, you want the less of?
Sure, go.
This is not a character. This is more of a scene.
Okay.
Holster your guns, boys. I know you all like this. I found it completely irrelevant. But Newt and his little buddies trying out sporting for the first time. I'm sorry. And this might be some residual from this extreme horror crap that I've read in the past, because that stuff is extremely explicit. But the imagery in that chapter, even the earlier stuff with Jake and Lori, wasn't as bad as some of that in that chapter. And I just thought it was just unnecessary. As funny as it was, and I get where McMurtry was coming from, sure, because he's telling a little bit of a coming age, point right here.
Yeah.
But I just felt like it didn't have to go that far.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just me personally. Go for it.
I can't speak for Rowdy and Scott, but I understand where you're coming from. Like I think if it would have been like the joke, the joke that I liked before they actually go and they meet the Mary and Buff, or I think the ladies were names.
Buffalo.
Then it gets very descriptive a little bit, and that could have done without, like, he could have kept it more on the lighter side with the humor, but that was a good one. Rowdy?
I agree with Trav. Like the Roscoe stuff, like I could not believe they killed him off. Like he was one of my favorite characters, and just to see where I wanted him to go back and marry the lady, become a farmer, adopt the girl that he had with. I mean, man, that would have been great.
Yeah.
Oh, that hurt my feelings. Obviously, Gus dying hurt my feelings bad. I mean, he's my favorite character, but I don't really have technically a scene that I didn't want to get rid of or have less of, but just which I've mentioned before, I don't need 3 pages of someone trying to explain why they weren't told that they did a good job on something.
Right.
I don't care. Give me a sentence, I got it. Move on. But I can't handle 3 pages of random things about someone's feelings when nothing is happening. They're just upset or, because they didn't get praise for something.
Well, don't read The Wheel of Time then.
Okay.
Just going to forewarn
you. Okay.
Scott?
July Johnson. I could have taken less of him from beginning to end.
Great.
If you remember in the beginning, he wouldn't talk to little Joe. He just moped around. And then he has kind of this second arc where he's with Clara and he's still moping around. He can't even get up enough gumption to say, or really even like hardly talk to her at all, express his feelings. So he just never really progressed, but he was given a lot of page time. So I just was kind of just like, oh, this guy is just such a mope, and he's had like every opportunity to improve his situation, and I just couldn't get past. I mean, some of them were just kind of like simpletons, but like emotionally, he was just so stunted from beginning to end.
Yeah. I think
he was so boring in the book that they cut half his scenes in the miniseries, and completely I felt like they changed the way he acted.
He was perkier in the miniseries, and which I think was a better better call.
Because really, you could completely do without his whole storyline if you wanted to in the book.
He's not Mr. Personality, let's say that.
No. Not at all.
He's the extreme. If Gus is one extreme, he's the other extreme.
Yeah. July would have been my pick, and he reminded me, I don't how to explain this, but he reminded me of the character that's going to make it all the way through the end and come out unscathed, but like it just La La Land half the time, like, and just won't get out of his own way, just kind of, like you said, moping around about every little thing and doesn't take, and just he's going to skate out of it fine. Whereas, the people that are dying are out there, pressing on, trying to live life to 100, and it irks you a little bit, but that's typical in life. So it works from that perspective. But yeah, July would be my pick as well.
He gets the girl too.
Yeah.
Clara. I mean, he didn't even have to work for it,
No.
I didn't think that was very fair.
Yeah.
He's got no riz.
Yeah.
That's right.
That's what the kids say.
So next question, favorite character.
Well, it's Gus. I mean,
Gus.
it's hands down. I mean, it's Gus.
Gus and Roscoe tied for me.
Yep. I agree.
Scott?
Yeah, Gus. I mean, from beginning to end, he was comedy gold. And I would write down my LOLs when they were the army guys, when they were coming up and when they had first met him out on the range. They were like, "Why are you taking cattle to Montana?" And I'll watch my language here, but he just said, "Well, we just want to see him poop up in Montana."
Yeah.
And he just have like these one-liners
Yeah.
to these like army guys, and they were just, they didn't know what to think of him. Like, who talks like that? So he just, from beginning to end, he just would steal a scene. And for minor characters, I'd go with Roscoe too. I really liked him.
Yeah. I think minor, I would say Roscoe. I think Gus is my second favorite, and I didn't like him at the beginning of the book. I thought he was annoying at first. And then he grew on me, and then really got, I really enjoyed him. But my favorite's Dietz. Dietz is my favorite character.
Now, Dietz was going through this whole existential crisis, like 2/3 of the way in, where why are we going to Montana? Everything was good there. And he was the one who was thinking about the moon, right? Like, the moon could come down and stuff like that. And he really seemed to have like, more like a philosophy to him that he couldn't express, to others, but we could hear his thoughts.
Yeah.
You talk about a philosophy. Okay. I'm going to say this. Gus being my favorite character, I agree with everything else everybody says, but to me, Gus wasn't just a favorite character, but he was also, to me, the embodiment of this entire book. And here's why. I'm going to say it. Brace yourselves. I'm going to say it. To me, he was like the Dumbledore of this whole book, because he has, think about it. Gus has a quip for everything. And for the most part, he's always right. He knows everything, whether it's humorous, whether it's serious, sad, whatever, he is always right on the money. In my eyes, if any character in this book I had to 100% trust, it would be Gus McCrae.
Yeah.
Simple as that.
Yeah.
And because of his knowledge and his experiences and just the way he saw everything and everybody, he embodied this entire book for me from beginning to end. He might not have been likable in some ways, especially toward the beginning, but when he progressed, he just became Lonesome Dove to me.
Yeah. I think with his passing, Call, it kind of showed that, without Gus, Call didn't have that direction. He didn't have that, kind of like guidance and that reliable person to see him through. It's almost like Gus was he was the leader, but Call did all the heavy work,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm going to assume then your least favorite death, the death that hurts you guys the most, would be Gus.
Probably.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely. Like
So-
I can't.
Yeah.
I
Go ahead.
can't believe that they held him on for so long. Like I really thought, like, okay, when he gets shot with the arrows and then they dig this hole, I'm thinking, wow, they're actually going to kill him off right here. And then he makes it all the way back, and you're like, holy cow, he's going to make it. Yes, they just had to take one leg, and then he's like, nope, got to take both or you're dead.
Right.
And he's like, guess I'm dead.
Yeah.
Like that was awful. I mean, the saddest death to me is Roscoe, I think, but Gus is my guy.
Yeah.
Dustin Newt is not Lonesome Dove, but he does kind of embody the journey of everything. So
Yeah.
I guess you could have an argument there.
Okay,
see,
so
there he goes.
Favorite death. Which character did you want to see die the most?
Jake.
Yeah.
I didn't like him after what he did and left Lorena. That ended him for me. I was like, get this dude out of this book.
Yeah.
Like, he's the worst. Always thinking he's right. He hit her just because she disagreed with him, and then he leaves her. It's like, no, you got to go.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, he got physical with her a bunch of times.
He did.
I mean, he
did.
just, yeah, he just was slowly just unraveling.
I can't pick Jake because that was my character, thanks to Scott. But I mean, the one that I was like, let's just be all done with this person was Elmira.
Yeah, she's in there too. I didn't like her neither.
I mean, yeah, like the only thing that came out of Elmira, and I'm not saying that wasn't meant to be a pun, was she gave July a kid.
Yeah. No, but you're 100% right.
Yeah.
Like, she is a despicable person.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, really.
She's arguably the worst character in that book. I mean, even for like Blue Duck and even Dan Suggs to an extent, as evil and vicious as they were, at least they had substance to them and made stuff interesting. Winch was just as cold as a flavorless snow cone. I mean, she was just like the shaved ice in a paper cone, no flavored syrup, no substance whatsoever. And even her death happened off page, which really,
I thought that was crazy to me, just for the fact that she's been in a book a lot, and it's just like just on a random, so and so found 2 dead, 1 buffalo hunter, and 1 woman. And it's like. And that's it.
And we didn't even. We could have at least gotten the pleasure of watching, reading her
for real.
That is my thoughts right there. Is I wanted to read that out and be like, haha,
give us the satisfaction.
Yeah. That one was bad. I didn't like how he did that. So, anything outside of the deaths crush you in this book? Anything, obviously you could, so let me give you some examples. You could talk about, Newt never getting to be named after Call. You could talk about, Clara and Gus never getting together. But anything crush you outside of like the deaths of favorite characters?
Other than Jasper not drowning. I don't know. I can't say anything, but beyond the deaths, I can't say anything really crushed me.
Okay.
I have not. Have y'all any of y'all read Streets of Laredo?
No.
Okay. So I'm curious if, and I have no clue. Obviously, I hadn't either. If he does, like, if Newt wanted Call to basically say he was his dad. I'm curious if it happens in the next book.
Dustin's read all of them.
Okay. So other than that, like, that was really it, I guess. Like, that was the main one, I think. Like, the whole book, it almost was like the whole book was building kind of to that part to where he finally, because I mean, it was hinted multiple times. And then Gus tells him, and then even you go to Clara, and Clara's like, why didn't you tell him like he's your son? Why didn't you give him your name? It's like he's like, well, I gave him my horse. It's like that's not the same thing.
No, it's not.
And it's I don't know. I'm curious if it happened. No, don't say it, Dustin, because I'll probably end up going and reading it.
Okay,
but that's mine.
If you want to know, you can watch his review.
Okay.
Scott, anything for you?
I would have liked to have seen Clara. She finally got the boy she wanted, which was great because she just kept reverting back to the 3 boys she had lost. So that was that was satisfying. But I would have liked to have seen her in. If it was going to be July, I would have liked to have seen those two have a little more chemistry. That way, she, instead of getting another Bob, she would have gotten a man who kind of complimented her a little bit more, kind of like Gus. So I would like to have seen that, but she partially got what she wanted with having a relatively healthy boy.
Yeah.
I thought it was really neat too on how before Gus dies, Call tells him that whenever he dies, he's like, hey, you want to go back to Clara? Why don't I just take you back and you can be buried with her 3 sons? And he's like, I don't want to be married with that stupid horse trader.
Yeah.
Right.
And then, of course, they go back and she's like, just bury him here. And he's like,
right.
I can't. That's not what he wanted. It's
right.
like, you're going to 3,000 miles away? He can go right here.
So before we kick it over to some trivia with Scott, which should be interesting with his obscure questions, did any of you dislike how open-ended it was with Lorena at the, like we don't really know what's going to happen because she's such a vital character throughout the whole thing. And it was kind of just very obscure. Did any, I know we can't go on perpetuity continuing the story forever, but you didn't get any real finalization with that character?
Yeah. She was kind of just as soon as Gus left her, she knew Gus was, she didn't really have any growth or any change after that. She just kind of was, stuck in mild to severe depression, actually.
Because it's almost inferred. Would you agree, Scott, that basically she's going to be at the ranch helping Claire and the girls, and maybe July and Martin at that point, And I don't is Dish is still there, right?
Dish is there. Dustin, you've probably read on. I haven't read on, but I assume there's probably going to be more with those two in one of the other books, because I think he left enough meat on the bone where, we might be curious to see what happens there. Yeah. And, I'm kind of glad Dish didn't get, it would have been too much of a happy ending if everybody got what they wanted. Wrong.
I don't think that they would ever get together, and I could be wrong because she has never, not once, gave him the time of day.
No.
Like, ever. So I could see her more trying, if she'd got with anybody else in the crew, I could see it more being Newt, just because he was younger and he was super shy, and she did not despise him. Like, she seemed to despise Dish.
Yeah, and can you imagine her mental, like, or can you imagine? No, let's flip it. Can you imagine Dish's mental processing of that? Because what you're saying, Rowdy, she is being paid to sleep with men through the book, and finally she stops, with Jake and all that. But at that point, Dish is like, he's making advances towards her for a relationship. She doesn't want anything to do with him. She has this trauma happen to her. Gus goes and saves her and whatnot, and so she grows attached to Gus, in that sense. But he's still there, letting her know, like, hey, I'm here, to not pay you. I'm here to be with you. And he is still getting revoked or from her after all of that. Can you imagine what is going through his head? I
can't believe he still tries.
To be honest, I agree.
You get turned down that many times over and over and over. And next book. Okay.
Sad story.
Yep.
Yeah. So gentlemen, are you ready for the fourth round of Scott's trivia?
Yeah. Now I only have like 12 questions here, so I was intently reading this. The first one's a number one. I'm not going to give it to you, Trav, because that was the first time you got all the number ones. So, Kevin, this is going to be a number one for you.
Okay.
How much did Clara's piano cost with shipping? Now, this is about 1878.
For some reason, the number 250 stays in my head.
240.
I was
Very
close.
nice.
All right. Do you want to adjust that for inflation?
What's the inflation? I know you've already got it.
Yeah.
I'm thinking what, like 2,500?
$7,574.52. So that was expensive piano.
35 times. Wow. Okay.
All right, Rowdy, going around the horn. What is mumbly peg?
Mumbly peg. I do not know.
Does
I don't
anybody
remember
want
that book.
try for a steal?
I don't remember it.
It was a game they played. Dietz played it. The Big Buffalo Hunter played it. You take a knife and you throw it into the ground, and it sticks. And so you usually have something they're throwing it at. That's mumbly peg. I think it was mentioned 3 times. The first time was when they were outside Clara's, and the Big Buffalo Hunter was playing. He was showing the kids. He's playing Zwei. Big Z.
Yeah, Zwei. Yeah. Okay.
All right, Trav. What does stropped mean? STROPPED. Stropped.
What's up, Mark?
I have no idea.
It was Clara. It's a verb. I had to look it up, but within the context, it was kind of.
I can't remember. I can't remember where it was used.
Yeah,
she was with her husband, cleaning him up.
I know.
I guess changed his clothes after he. I don't know. I don't know what it is.
Kevin?
I think it's shaving, and then you strop it your razor, right?
Sharpening the razor.
Yeah,
Strop.
That's right.
Yeah, like
that's
it's Travis, the old school straight razor thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. The leather
electric.
Belt and razor. Yeah.
Yeah.
I use electric, so I don't know anything.
Yeah.
Okay, Kevin. Who named the Hell Bitch?
Oh my gosh.
Page 697.
Oh.
And if you're in the chat, give wrong answers. This person got.
I'm gonna say PI.
You're correct.
Yeah.
It's a
Holding it out.
Total guess.
After getting bit. All right. What is Droughts, the game? DROUGHTS. Just roundabout. You don't have to give ones and zeros. Droughts. It's on page 773.
What is it? Is that what you said?
Yes, it's a game.
Droughts. I don't know. The only thing I can think of that I really remember on playing is cards. So, other than it being a card game, I don't know.
Anybody want to take a guess? it's basically like checkers. So you have a checkerboard, you have 2 players, and you have 12 pieces. And so I think they've played it twice in there.
Wow.
I don't remember that at all.
I don't either.
Page 773, if you're curious, on the replay.
Wow.
All right. Newt gets a horse from Clara. What does he name the horse? This is for Trav.
He named it Sugar.
Yeah.
It's a sweet name.
I think I said sugar.
Sugar.
Candy?
Sugar. Sugar.
Yes, it's a sweet name, but it was Candy, right? Now you got me questioning myself.
Wasn't the actual name Sugar?
I think it was Candy.
It might be Candy. Oh, wait a minute. It might be Candy. You're right. It may be Candy. I know I seen them. I know I saw the name Sugar in there somewhere, though. Pretty sure.
Candy.
Candy.
There you go. Kevin's gonna look it up, but
it's Candy.
Candy.
It was a sweet name. Okay, Kevin. When the horses were stolen by the Indians and they had to go find them, this is where Dietz died. How many horses were stolen?
16.
You're in the ballpark, but
can I guess?
Yeah, go ahead.
Seems like it was 12 or 14.
12.
12.
Okay. I had 16 in my head for some reason. Okay. Was it 20? Was it 20 people that were there?
Was it 20? It was 20 or 28, something like that.
Maybe that's what it was.
Yeah.
Okay. 20 Indians or something. They had older and they had kids. Okay.
Okay, so we have a grizzly bear encounter.
Mm-hmm.
How fast can a grizzly bear run?
Oh my gosh.
It's not in the book.
It's not in the book. Okay. So I do have a chance. I know they're super fast. They're a lot faster than humans. So I'm going to guess a cheetah can run 60 or 65. I'm going to guess a grizzly bear 30. Can I get a roundabout?
Sure.
Can I get close? 35 to 40.
35 to 40. It's what I got written down.
Yeah.
Grizzly bears are fast.
Yeah.
Okay. How fast? Any of you guys? I have not seen Open Range with Robert Duvall.
Neither have I.
Then watch it.
After I watched the miniseries, that was the one that it recommended me. That was one of them. That and Tombstone. So I may go watch it. Is it good, Dustin? Is he basically just playing Gus in a different movie?
I'd enjoy that if he was.
Oh, heck yeah. I'd definitely go watch it.
35 miles an hour. That's fast for something that weighs, 1,200 pounds.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, so following up on that, and we'll give a range here. How fast can a horse run with a rider? And we're assuming this is not a thoroughbred with a 100-pound jockey. This is for Trav.
Okay.
You got the grizzly bear one.
I'm going to say 50 mile an hour, 45 to 50 range.
That would be for a thoroughbred with a jockey, with a horse galloping, non-jockey, 25 to 35. A regular horse, just your domestic horse, 20 to 30. So my guess is during this time when they were trying to catch up with these grizzly bears, they had no chance,
Oh, no. They get destroyed.
Yeah. And so, if they did catch up with it for some reason, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
Right.
Ain't no bullet going to put it down, because they even talked about it in the book. It's like you can shoot it, but it ain't going to fall.
Yeah.
Well, that was one of the things that when Gus and PI are hunkering down, Gus wants the pistols and wants PI to take the rifle because if he encountered any animals, he needed the rifle. And Gus needed the pistols because he just couldn't make a rifle work with his leg. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I had mentioned on our first stream when we were in the green room, Lewis and Clark, when they went on their journey, they encountered grizzly bears and they couldn't kill them. They had mostly muskets in the early 1800s, and they just shot and shot, and they would have to run in the water to get away from them. Even like the second time when they were a little more prepared, they couldn't take down a grizzly bear then. So stay away from grizzly bears. I'm like, what are you going to do? I've watched, I went down that rabbit hole, and their paws
are huge.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, what are you going to do? People are like, I'll punch them in the face. I'm like, no, you're not.
No, they wouldn't probably let you close enough to do it. And if they did, they'd laugh at you after they bit your head off.
Yeah.
Okay. Who's next? Where are we at? Kevin?
Yeah.
How did Call's father die?
Oh my gosh. Was it an Indian?
No.
I was thinking either Indian or war. I don't know. I don't know.
Anybody want to steal it?
I was going to guess war. Some Post Army or something.
He got drunk, fell out of the barn loft, and broke his neck.
That's right. I remember that. Yep. He says it in the book. Yep.
What state did this happen in?
Virginia.
Was there a full moon?
Was there a full moon?
That's the third question. Mississippi.
Yeah.
And remember, Call was from Scotland. He wasn't even an American. Gus had given him a hard time about that. Okay, 2 more questions. Where did the girl playing the piano? This is when Gus is dying. Where did she study music?
Oh my gosh.
They mentioned it twice.
Yep.
They did.
Oh, wow.
Oh, I know it.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
And she did have a medical condition, if anybody remembers what that was.
She had shakes, didn't she?
It's not implied, but it's implied that she had something like tuberculosis, something like that she was dying.
Consumption.
Yeah. That's tuberculosis, right? Is it consumption? Is that what they used to call it?
I think so.
I don't know. I'm going to guess. Probably too smart. Let's do what?
Oh,
Let's just go Yale. I don't have a clue.
It was just Philadelphia. She was from Philadelphia. She learned to play in Philadelphia. Maybe you can get. How much did Gus give her to keep playing?
I know that answer.
That's your follow-up.
Go ahead. Oh, it's still $20 or
$20.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, it's silver 20 or something, or gold 20 or something.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And I didn't do the adjustment for inflation, but $30 was just over 800, so it would have been about $600 to keep playing.
That's a good night. Yeah,
not bad for a day's work. Final question. Now, I don't think this was just a guess in the book, but what took Gus's leg when it was in the coffin?
I know this.
I think they gave 2 different animal possibilities. One for sure stood out because it was the only mention of this animal.
This is Trav's, right?
This is Trav.
Oh,
Okay.
Coyote was one suspect, wasn't it?
I don't think so. Smaller.
It was that one thing with a weird name. That's why it stood out. I can't remember. I don't know.
Kevin?
Brownie?
Would it be a mongoose?
It's related to the Wolverine.
Was it a Wolverine?
They mentioned a Wolverine and then something else, and I don't remember what the something else was.
Is there Wolverines?
Mm-hmm.
In which would be
Montana? Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't know that.
Yeah. I think some guy shot a Wolverine in Michigan not too long ago, a few years ago. It strolled over there.
Do you really think?
Is that it?
Oh, yeah. That's it. That's all I got.
I was trying to find the animals.
Dustin says, my ancestor, James Neely, probably murdered Meriwether Lewis. And he's not joking. He probably had it coming.
Okay, so that's trivia.
That's all
Sponsored
I had.
by Coca-Cola.
Coca-Cola. I was really into the last thing, so that's all I came up with.
Okay.
Oh, I did have a question for everybody, though.
Sure. Shoot.
All right. What would you rather wear? Now, remember, Poe walked from Texas to Montana. So would you rather wear Poe's shoes, Big Z's buffalo coat, or wear Lippy's hat? You got to wear one.
Oh, gosh.
I'll go with Poe's shoes.
I'm just going to say the shoes, too.
Probably.
It's the furthest thing from your nose.
Yeah, the smell. I'm just worried about, like, how you going to walk in them? Like, are they going to be, like, all tore up? And
we'll assume they're your size.
Okay. I guess.
Are you talking from a survival standpoint?
Well, yeah, I just mean, like, how are you going to walk? Like, are they going to be like, I don't mean normal shoes, but like actually have a sole in them, or is like half of them tore open and like your foot's hanging out? Or
that's the question. How did he make it 20? Well, he joined a little bit, but let's say 2,200 miles. How did his shoes survive 2,200 miles?
Honey.
Stuffed them with honey and grasshoppers.
There you go.
That'll do it.
So, any other questions before we get into final thoughts?
I don't think so.
Okay. Trav, did you have anything you wanted to share before we talk final thoughts and give a rating per se?
Yeah.
Okay. So, you want to do final thoughts first, or you want to do your final thoughts and your rating?
Yeah, we can do that. Final thoughts and rating.
Sounds good.
Okay, who wants to kick it off?
I'll go. I guess I was the most negative of everybody in it.
How are we gonna you consistently rate? Or what are we doing? Are we doing 5 stars? Or are we doing out of 10? 9 out of 10? Or we do 5 star? Okay.
5 stars.
Are you going to do half and quarter, or are you just going to do whole numbers?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
That's fine. We can do halves.
Okay.
So, first 50 chapters, if it wouldn't have been for this buddy read, it was a DNF because I did not like this book at all. I thought it was super boring. Nothing happened. Now, spoiler right here, I've already made my review. It comes out Monday. So I'm already going to say this in it as well. But it's almost like he was like, you know what? This book is really boring. How about we step it up a notch and turn it to 100? Because the last 50 chapters were unbelievably great.
Yeah.
If this book would have done what it did in the last 50, half as much in the first 50, this probably would have been the best book I've ever read in my life. Because it was really, really good. So, loved most of the characters. Some of them, obviously, and I have my quarrels about just the way that he writes about random stuff and goes on way too long about it. But other than that, I loved the second half. So, I rated this 4 stars for me.
Okay.
Very good. I probably could have went 4.25, but I'm going to say 4 just because I was so down on the first half. But the second half was so good that I really liked it.
Okay. Who wants to go next?
I'll go 4.25 for me. I kind of knew what was going to happen, so I was a little more entrenched than Rowdy was at the beginning, just watching the miniseries and everything. But I could just hear I could hear their voices. I could picture everything. So it's kind of, I think I've only read like 5 Westerns. So this one, you're really in there. And he does get long-winded with all the dust and the environment, and it kind of repeats itself with some of that stuff. But that's just, par for the course with reading a Western. But yeah, I mean, it hit all the little notes for me throughout. I love Gus. He's probably top 5 character I've read. I really like Call too. I liked his consistency throughout. He was pretty much uncompromising with everything. Just with his personality. I like the way they complement each other. I like a good like buddy cop kind of thing, where you have 2 guys who are opposite personalities, but they really complement each other. So, that really stuck out for me, and just, the whole epicness of it. It was really epic. But if you're not familiar, if you would have just picked this up off a shelf and not known anything about it, I could see where somebody might bail out early on.
Scott,
I'm glad you stuck with it, Rowdy.
Scott, your favorite Western
that I've read?
Yeah.
Probably. Is it Riders of the Purple Sage?
By Zane Grey.
Zane Grey, yeah. And that's kind of like they have like this weird Shangri-La thing in there where they find this space that's just hidden from everything. I think it was like in Utah or something like that. And it's just like this really beautiful love story in there. So that would, and it's a short read too.
Back to Rowdy before we move to Trav. You've read other Westerns, or this was your first entry?
This is my first. Yeah.
Your first. Okay.
So I'm actually reading, as Justin said, True Grit for him. I'm reading True Grit in May. I think that's right. I'm doing a buddy read with it.
Okay.
And I'm looking forward to it because, for one, it is way shorter. It's not 1,000 pages. It's like 250 or something. So
perfect.
Maybe that's way more just straight to the point.
Yeah.
So.
Trav?
Okay, I guess I'm just going to kind of summarize my Goodreads review of this book because I've already posted that on Goodreads.
Okay.
And I'm actually kind of shocked that after hearing those first 2 ratings, I gave it 4.75 stars.
Nice.
I thought it was an epic read. I really did. I did have a few issues with it. I felt like Rowdy, I wasn't bogged down by the beginning as much as Rowdy was, because I really got into the way McMurtry wrote the story. I loved the writing of it because I'd said this, I think, in the very first live stream we did on this, that it gave me a familiarity. It put me in the story. It was very simple, but it was very effective. It just grabbed me and it just went on from there. But there were several times throughout the entire book, the narrative was elongated to the point to where it did get like, okay, get to the point already. I didn't need this much. There were scenes in it that I felt were irrelevant, moments where I felt like we didn't need that. Like especially Newt and the sporting thing. You know, it was like just that imagery was like, dear Lord, why? It felt very full circle to me, so I got that symbolic feeling from it. Where Call, yeah, okay, this is going to be a stupid analogy, but this is just how it just kind of got to me. Like, another way to say Lonesome Dove is isolated bird. You've got Call from this whole group, everything that he's put them through because of his decision to take them on this journey via Jake Spoon, mind you, of course. But he ends up coming back to the place where it all started by himself. And it just kind of reflected on back on everything that happened, and it just brought him back to this point. I just felt like it was a full circle thing. Nothing else got resolved, but it didn't feel like a story after a while because of McMurtry's writing. He had this realism to his writing that it made it feel like more of just these historical accounts of these people at this certain time in these certain situations. It didn't really need to be a story, if that makes any sense. I don't know how else to explain it other than that, but that's why I was ultimately okay with nothing getting truly resolved, because, okay, maybe it doesn't need to be resolved because that's just what it is in the moment. Because like I said, I'm in the moment, I'm there. Like maybe I don't need to know what's going on. Still kind of bummed that Jasper never drowned, mind you. That might haunt me. I don't know. But that's it. That, to me, it was it made it a very different novel, to look at it in those ways. And that's why I gave it the high rating that I did. Yeah. And now for my very first Western, it was great. It was great. This was a recommendation from a friend of mine outside the platform, of course. And, I went for it. And yeah, I don't know if I will continue Western. I don't know if Western's going to be my genre. But that's my thoughts on the book.
Yeah. I think if you're if you're real big as a character focused reader, I don't know if it gets better than this, to be honest. I mean, and maybe that was why I was so low in the beginning too, was just it took me, I'm a huge action person. Like, I love action to happen. I don't like a bunch of dialogue. And I think it just took me half the book to get into the mindset. And that's why I love this. I mean, obviously there was way more action in the second half, but I really started enjoying the characters the longer I read it. And I think that's what it took me a while to click with the characters in it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Well, gentlemen, this is not a 5-star read for me, unfortunately. 4.75 is for me. It is my highest Western that I've read. And so I've read, a couple Elmer Leonards, 20 odd plus Louis L'Amour's. Definitely my favorite Western. Now, the book has some problems for me. The opening, it is, I agree with Trav. It's definitely a character thing that you have to get established before you start going out and start doing stuff, which is when Rowdy started liking it. The ending, yes. I mean, you have to look at the ending. There's probably a lot of semblance and theme there that I just didn't get. I just thought it was a little rushed. And I read several authors that like to rush endings, Stephen King, Louis L'Amour, to speak of a couple. But the scope, though, of everything that happens is very epic. I mean, there's a lot that happens here. And so I enjoyed it. It definitely, I think it has a great authenticity to the time period and things that are happening, when it comes to the Indians, when it comes to life in general between man and woman and towns, and how it's, a take world out there. And I really enjoyed it. It's a 4.75 for me, for sure. So any other final thoughts that you guys have? Anyone in the chat? Any questions you want to throw out there?
Yeah. Dustin says Stephen King wishes he could write a book like this. Oh, that's so sad.
And see, he actually did. 11/22/63 by Stephen King. It's a perfect 5-star book.
I can't wait to read that. It's right there. Oh, I actually have. Okay, Kevin, I know you said that you've not watched this, but I know Scott has. Trav, have you watched the miniseries yet?
Yeah, I did, and I didn't really care for it, to be honest with
Okay.
you. I think the book ruined it for me, and the characters were nowhere near that I imagined in the book. And there were just things in it that just, I don't know, it just felt very quick. Where you have this epically long book, but then you have this miniseries in 4 parts, but you have to cover everything as fast as possible, and it just chopped and changed. It just didn't work for me.
They made, I think it's 4. Yeah, it's 4 episodes. They're what, an hour and a half a piece, maybe just a little less.
Yeah.
If this thing was a 10-part episode and made it an hour a piece or hour and a half, it'd be perfect. You could nail this entire book in 10 episodes. And I think it would be great if they did it now. It'd be so good. Because you could, I mean, especially the way that, your special effects work and all that, like you could get, man, this thing would be awesome. Be so good. Yeah. But I agree. I did not like it near as much as the book. I thought it was decent, but it was also done in 90, I think, something
89.
Like that. 89. So, I mean, we're 35, 36 years
89.
past. Yeah.
February 89. I knew exactly where I was at.
I was
in front of an RCA.
That's 4.5 years old.
Big old box TV.
Zenith. Yeah.
Zenith on the floor.
There we go.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Weighed about 1,000 pounds.
Yep.
Yeah, I remember those.
I'm just going to reverse through my notes here from beginning to end.
Go for
just
it.
Some things that stood out. Newt is left in charge. Call did not give him his name. And now Newt is like Call, and that nothing really matters, except work.
Yeah.
That's how the world turns.
Yeah.
And it's like that whole family.
Yeah.
It starts with him and then goes to the next one.
Just an LOL when they're trying to figure out what to do with Gus's body. They put it on salt and charcoal. One of the guys said, "Well, I guess you could smoke them."
Yeah.
So
that's true.
I'm like, it would keep them fresh for a journey. When Gus and P, they're holed up in that little hole, and the Indians kept running in, and he would take shots at them, and he'd knock a couple out. That is based on real Indian fighting, where they wouldn't charge all at once. Like like World War II, something like that, where we're going to take that hill, and you send 1,000 men up the hill. Whoever gets cut out, gets cut out. But Indians were not like that. They weren't willing to risk a lot of men in a charge. And that's based off I think it was Comanche Moon. It was a nonfiction book I read. They had 100 Indians, 10 people trapped in a saloon, and they would just, 1 or 2 Indians would go, they'd take pot shots at them, and finally the Indians gave up. But if they had all just rushed in, they would have wiped them out, but they didn't want to risk, losing valuable braves and everything. So they were very judicious with their use of war fighting. What else do I got?
I don't think I have any plans to read Streets of Laredo right now. Sorry.
I will eventually. I wasn't going to. I agree. Like the first half of this book, I was like, I am not reading the rest of them. But the way it ended, there is stuff that I want to know about, like what happens to Lori and Nude, and does Call go all the way back? I mean,
it's decisive.
There's a lot of questions.
Yeah, it's pretty decisive. If people, there's a camp over here that likes it. There's a camp over here. When you look at the different reviews, but yeah.
You could
I probably will eventually. I will probably will, but yeah.
I'm gonna want the. Does Scott? You said you haven't read Streets of Laredo?
No.
Okay, all right. Then Dustin might know this. Is Streets of Laredo the second part of what is it? Return to Lonesome Dove? Is that the mini series for that? Go ahead, Scott. You can continue.
Oh, yeah, they did, because they did a follow-up miniseries, and I didn't watch it because it was, they have this, Ricky Schroeder still plays Newt, but it just didn't hit for me. I just got one other thought here, I think. Call had a lot of thoughts about Jake Spoon. He doesn't like thinking that he could have saved him. So because Call was such a leader, he thought, what could I have done to have saved him? And I think, Kevin, you were the first in our first live stream. You said, I don't know if you remember, but you said he's probably going to end up getting hung. And so I had to bite my tongue because he got hung. And then in the second live stream, I think Travis and Rowdy both said, okay, yeah, something bad is gonna happen to him soon. So you had a bunch of predictions that did come true.
Yeah, I think we all, like I said earlier, we all kind of predicted there was going to be deaths. Like, not everyone's going to be making it, or not everyone's going to be coming back. So for sure.
Yeah, I don't think you could write this book without having people die in it. Like the West, or just, back then, it was a hard life. I mean, you were lucky to live to be 40 or 45 years old. A lot of them were, just the disease that had, so you would have, especially, a 3,000-mile trip or however long it was, across the country, basically. Yeah, there's going to have to be people that die. Now, he could have chose someone else besides Gus, of course. P.I. could have been gone. I wouldn't have bothered me one bit, few of them, but it was going to happen.
Yeah. Any other questions or thoughts from the group in the chat? So, gentlemen, are you glad we went with this kind of format? Everyone hosting their own live stream, giving ourselves 2 weeks to read it all. Did you enjoy that kind of the 2-month progression that we made it through the book? Did you enjoy that?
I did, for the fact of it's 1,000 pages or right at it. Like, I couldn't have got through it if it had been any sooner than that.
Now come on, Rowdy. You like big books and you cannot lie.
I do like some chunky boys, that's for sure. So now if we do something like this again and we do get a smaller book, then I would probably just go with like one stream and then we just rotate.
Yeah.
For sure. But if we're talking 1,000-page books, yeah, it needs to be broke up for sure.
Well, I just want to thank you for letting me join the group. I know it was the last edition here.
Oh, well,
well,
you are the man.
You weren't our first pick, but it's okay.
It was either Dustin or Faceless. I don't know how he beat you guys out. I think it was just because I was willing to go on camera for 4 sessions.
I don't even remember how it organically kind of came about.
It might have been you and Trav were already going to do it, and I just asked, is like, hey, can I join this because I'm interested in it? And you said yeah, and then I mentioned it, and then Scott asked me, and I was like, I don't care.
I did a book haul with this book because I said, remember, because I had a bunch of books at Barnes & Noble or something. I had Lonesome Dove. Kevin hit me up in the comments, said, hey, you want to read this? And I thought, sure, go for it. And then here comes Rope and Rowdy along and bringing Sport and Life Scott right behind him in the end. But I will say that this particular experience, you all are experiencing this. I'm not. This was the first time I've ever done a buddy read 4 times on the same book, let alone just once for one book. So it's been a little bit daunting. I'm not going to lie. I've got to be honest. There were some moments I felt a little overwhelmed doing this, but it's been a great experience.
Yeah.
It's for my first live streaming and buddy reading experience. So
yeah.
Oh, this is my first buddy read as well. I've not done any besides this one.
But you've been on
before, interviews and stuff like that. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. That's mostly what I was referring to. Well, I was referring to a buddy read too. I've never done a buddy read before ever.
Yeah.
I have a question. How long did everybody have the book before you read it? I had it over 10 years sitting on my shelf before I read it. Dustin, anybody else in the chat? How long did you have it on your shelf before you read it?
I got mine at a used store, and I got mine probably like everyone else because I had heard like, hey, this is really good. And I got mine because I started reading the Louis L'Amour Westerns and really enjoying them. Like, hey, everyone talks about like, this is the best Western ever. And so I saw it. It was like $1 at a used bookstore. I'm like, yeah, I'll pick it up, and it probably sat, I would say, close to 6 months before I was like, I saw Trav's haul, and I'm like, hey, we should read that, because I've been hearing about it, but yeah, probably at least 6 months.
Well, obviously, I've not had mine that long because this book haul I did, I don't know, I might have had it about 6 months. I can't remember when I did that. I got it sometime in the summertime, so yeah, it's probably about 6 months or roundabout.
I think I had mine 3 weeks because I didn't. Whenever I asked to join, I didn't have the book, and I went to my used bookstore multiple times looking for it because I was going to wait till the last minute. If it never came in, then I was going to buy it, on Amazon or something. And sure enough, I found it. I found the mass market paperback, and then I ended up going back to the used bookstore the very next week, and the hardcover was there, so I got it too.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I think it was 3 weeks before we started.
Yeah, June on the Range. Yeah, that'll be a big one. You'll start seeing videos everywhere about June on the Range in a couple months. Yeah. Yeah.
June I've not even heard of that.
Any other questions? Any other thoughts, gentlemen? Any other questions from the chat? Well, while you're thinking, I just want to say, this was a great experience. I definitely think doing, like you said, Rowdy, over the course, you're breaking the book up over the course and then allowing us to maybe, as Trav mentioned, step outside our comfort zone and do something that we're not always accustomed to doing was fun, but yet anxiety driven at times. But I think it was a good experience. I'm glad I did it. I definitely, since doing this, I know my buddy reads have exploded. And so I think it was great. I enjoyed the book. Obviously, I think we all kind of did. And I really enjoyed this. I want to thank you guys for letting me tag along, just like Scott, tagging along. So
I agree. I had a blast. And really, if it wasn't for doing this, I would not have finished this book because I did not like it. But I am very much glad that I did because it was great in the end.
Any final comments?
I swear when I started reading that, have y'all seen the SNL skit? I was living in a van down by the river.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I want to thank everyone. Thanks for our people for hanging out with us. Thanks to my 3 cohorts at the Hat Creek Gang. And this is the end of our Lonesome Dove Buddy Read. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, everybody.
Out of here.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for showing up.
Time to ride off into the sunset.